and we're about to get into a really good conversation. So, Jason, one of the things that we both agree on, and this is why I was extremely interested to have you on the program, is that there is a cost, an actual physical money trackable cost for not moving within organizations or out of organizations, right? There is a real cost. Let's get right into this. This is going to be a controversial topic anyways, right? So let's just get
well, for
into
the
it.
corporations, maybe not for the people that are watching, hell yeah.
And that was one of the things I was wondering about too. And I thought, you know what? And I just posted it about a half an hour ago before we got into this. Look, if you're in an HR team, if you're in a management team, you want to listen to this. Yeah. Because this is how you can be proactive in understanding how to build the right culture, or at least the structure of how to do right for your employees internally that could make you a more attractive and a more successful organization. But most importantly, it's about education. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Jason. Let's go, man. Let's get right into it.
Yeah. So I for a long time, I've always known just kind of intuitively that there was a huge cost. I would throw numbers out there like $2 to $3 million over your career. And finally somebody on my team was like, come on, Jason, really? Is it really $2 million? So I just did a little spreadsheet, right? And I took, kind of from my background, how the career that I kind of grew up in, I took kind of the basics of, okay, if you start, your first job out of college, then, a couple of years later, you typically would be promoted. And then 3 to 4 years later, you get another promotion, right? So I kind of went along the normal promotion route. And I just started with a local salary here in Los Angeles where I lived, right? So as if somebody were to start out of college today. And what it would be based on kind of a normal cost of living increase that you would normally get in your job versus if you were to actually make those promotion milestones at the particular time and point in time at which you should do that. And I ran it under like 3 different scenarios. And sure enough, the difference was in total lifetime earnings was between $2 to $3 million. And so that's why, for everybody that's listening, you might be sitting there thinking, but, I'm supposed to be a loyal employee. I get it. Your companies are telling you to be a loyal employee, keep your head down, do good work. But the reality is you're leaving a lot of money on the table. I mean, imagine what an extra $2 to $3 million over your lifetime would do for your family, for your cost of living. And I think especially now, Rigo, as we were talking before, with inflation this year in 2022, the average cost of living increase means it's going to take you 2 to 3 years at least just to get back to where you were from a real, cost of living standpoint than it was at the beginning of the year. Because I'm telling you, corporations aren't going to go give you a 10 or 15% raise to make up for inflation. You might be lucky to get 5. You're still 2 to 3 years behind where you need to be.
Now that's assuming that every year everything just stops.
And there's a lot of companies that do like freezes on salaries for years. Or you could be at the top of your pay scale and they're like, hey, Lorianne, we love you, but we're already paying you the maximum we can, so you don't get a raise.
So listen, I've heard this one recently. I heard this myself, right? In a previous role, I had negotiated well, got myself in, and we come around to the 1 year mark, and then all of a sudden, well, I know we talked about an increase, but we're going to do it this way. We'll give you a bonus instead. I'm like, look, if I was 20, you'd have fooled me, right? I understand how this is going to work. I'm not a dummy. Like, no, you owed me a 10% increase. That was the deal. I did my part. They kind of floated around and I was like, all right, that's strike one. Right. And I already kind of knew, okay, this is where we're going. Well, you're one of the more, you're in our top hired brackets. And I'm like, my negotiation skills to position myself to grow your business well is not a penalty and I shouldn't be penalized by that because someone else is happy being underpaid. Because in this role, this is a lower scale than it should be. If I want to move to a different area or different city, well, the cost of living's higher. You're right. And almost every one of those companies will allow me to do this remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So I can choose.
And another company probably, if you were to move to another company at that point, you probably would have gotten a 10 or 15% increase anyway.
Every
Yep.
time. I did it every time, Jason. I would not stick with a company longer than a few years. My rule was 2 years. Now, if they gave me opportunity to grow internally, I would stay and continue to grow because I love that challenge. But I gave a company 2 years. Even if I didn't like what was happening in the first year, I always felt that sometimes that first year could be, it could go really well, and then you'll really know what they're like by the second year. Or it could be, it could not go that well, and you could work hard to bring it to where you want to by the second year. So there's very few in my entire career, very, very few companies that I stayed with less than 24 months. But typically, every time I did that, I would negotiate 10, 15% increases. And so doing that over a course of 10 years, I was able to really elevate my income very fast.